Hi everyone. So I was asked to redo this presentation because I kind of was cut short during one of the recent conferences. So I thought that I would dive deeply into this presentation a little bit further and do the full 40-minute presentation so that everyone can, it's not rushed and everyone can see it. So without further ado, this is kind of a deep dive into reactive microcurrent and going over not only my personal experience with the technology and the reason that I've been working in this field and with this wonderful technology, but also, share a little stories and go into a little bit of the studies that underline and support the validity and, value of the technology. So without further ado, this is a deep dive into reactive microcurrent. And in this presentation, it's not really a lot of words as much as it is images and graphs and text to actually help you see like really the value behind what we're doing. So this is a nice little meme. And my background is, I have a background in computer science and operational research and robotics engineering. So my technical degrees are, in making things and making things do exactly what they should do, as well as designing protocols and algorithms to actually get them done. I like to think of myself as a monkey with a wrench, a lot of times trying to get the technology to work. And with this technology, I actually found that I have to do a lot less monkeying around, and it's really intuitive in how it works. But suffice to say, when I was younger, it wasn't always the case that, I'm this competent, engineer. I used to be a really cute kid, but under the hood, I had absolutely horrendous problems that I was plagued with. And you wouldn't look at it when you see this, you wouldn't say, "Oh yeah, he's got all these health problems." But I had a sunken chest that essentially created problems with my respiratory and lung system in my lungs. I had, scoliosis, which could present and showed with different spinal deviations, and then I had a chronic asthma, which was debilitating to the point where I was getting daily and weekly asthma attacks, and that was a really traumatic time. So by the time I was 10, I was an absolute wreck, and we went with the normal pharmaceutical guidance. We went to a primary care physician, an MD, and that primary care physician prescribed a nice pharmaceutical drug called Singular, and Singular did its job as advertised. The asthma attacks went from, once a day to once a month. And breathing on a normal basis, on a regular daily outcome, actually became a lot easier. And it went from me suffocating all the time to just, not getting any sleep, to, not being able to essentially functionally do anything, to being manageable. And this is where I say it's like, okay, well, this is a manageable chronic disease, right? Unfortunately, a lot of times people don't read the fine print in a lot of pharmaceuticals. And I was suffering with a little around 20 of the 30 side effects for adverse reactions for that drug. And so, and we didn't know that at the time, but we really spent about 3 years. And so you can kind of see each smiley face represented in a day. I spent about 3 years with these unknown side effects that were just kind of assigned to, oh, you might have just lost the genetic lottery, right? Or you might just, not be adequate in your body and your health. And so what I found when we went with the mainstream pharmaceutical side is I kept on getting these weird diagnoses with juvenile arthritis, or just oh, we don't know really what's going on. It might just be a part of his generally non-proper health. And it wasn't as bad because guess what? I could breathe. I wasn't worried about it. I was like, man, you know how nice it is to be able to breathe, like without feeling like you had a 40-pound weight on your chest. And it was quite nice, but I went from having a sunken chest, scoliosis, and asthma to having a sunken chest, scoliosis, no asthma, well, for the most part, painful joints, fatigue, and random chest pains and depression. So, we added a few more negative difficulties along the total, and it was manageable because I could breathe again. And so, as these kept on to stack and go over, I was 10 to 13 as I progressed in age. my mom started to see that, it was really debilitating across the board with all these different negative outcomes. And so she was trying to figure out ways that we could find a better set of solutions, a better path to being healthier and, not necessarily having to rely on pharmaceuticals. And one of the solutions that, she was looking for had to follow under these kind of like the set list rule, where it was like it has to be the right tool for the right job. So she didn't want to use any tools that were like, the side effect would be beneficial. For example, she wanted it to work every time, so when I needed assistance, it would help, and she wanted it not to have any harm, so she didn't want to create a worse problem, and she wanted it to be a positive experience for me. So, if it was a negative experience, she thought I wouldn't do it regularly, or if it was too hard to do, it would become unreasonable. And she didn't want to use opioids. She thought that pain medicines would that's just a short-term band-aid for me. She knew that they would cause depression. She worked in a hospital for quite a while, and she knew that the end game outcome for someone who got addicted to pain meds is not healthy, not good. And she didn't want me to get this surgery, which would essentially put a bar in my chest, because she thought, okay, well, that's also a short-term solution, and it's a permanent debilitation. It's deforming the same structure. It's changing, altering the actual structure behind it, and it'll cause more complications later on as I grow, especially being younger, because your body's going to shape and form to the surgical insert. So she thought that. We tried a couple of different microcurrent devices, and it was just one of them. One that we she really fell on was just too painful to actually do on a daily basis, and it gave partial results. It wasn't always a positive result in terms of actually handling. And we tried a little bit of healing through the destruction. So, kind of like impeding the nerve in some areas, and trying to overstimulate it so that I wouldn't be feeling pain. But each of these solutions provided more and more side effects and more negative downsides. And so eventually what we found was a technology that was reactive microcurrent. And reactive microcurrent was uh, a fantastic development in my life, because not only did it help me mitigate and manage my pain relief, or provide pain relief in my pain from the juvenile arthritis, which was caused from an adverse drug reaction from Singular, but it actually allowed for me to have more activity and less fatigue while I actually went around doing that. And with that extra activity, I had muscular retraining that occurred. So I was exercising, I was able to move, and then, as I was, training and exercising more, because I had less pain and more energy, my structure and my body started to decompensate and actually form a healthier overall body. And within, literally like a matter of 6 months, we kept on finding that, my symptoms would handle themselves and then flare up randomly. And we were trying to figure out, well, what's going on? And one day, she was about to hand me the Singular medication, and the little pink slip that talks about the side effects slipped out, and she literally went down the list and it checked off every box. So I was seeing a doctor at the time because I was having heart palpitations. I was, constantly sick. I missed something like 35 days of school. It got to the point where I was missing so many days of school because of just chronic illness that the school board sent someone to check on me to make sure that there wasn't a more a bad parental situation. So my mom was furious at this point, trying to figure out a solution, because if you have a sickly kid, it breaks your heart. You try to figure out a solution for it, and eventually the microcurrent reaction technology was providing enough relief where it would be on the day I took the drug that the negative side effects would come back. And so we found out that it was the side effects from the Singular that was causing, four of the, six major issues that we were having. And within, literally a matter of 2 weeks of not taking that medication, I didn't have any asthma attacks. I didn't have any of the negative, the reason why I would take the medication. And then the side effects went away. And, I went from essentially being absolutely, just fatigued and not being able to do a lot of things. I was a homebody almost. I would not go outside, to completely pivoting, going from barely able to walk a mile, to run a mile, to running marathons, to going out and exercising as much as I could be, to literally growing 6 inches in literally 1 year. An absolute crazy health change, and outcome. And of course, afterwards, my mom, burst through the door to the MD who prescribed the Singulair, and literally had a conversation of like, why would you ever prescribe this? And he said, well, this is, what the guidelines recommend. And it was extremely frustrating for us to experience this kind of like nonchalant, zero risk policy where, a doctor would, see that, hey, these are clear signs that there is side effects, and not really review the fact that they are causing harm. They are causing these huge debilitating issues, just because you have one or two minor issues that have been maintained and are cared for. And so that was really frustrating for me. So literally within 6 months of using the reactive microcurrent, I had multiple different scars in my body disappear. I had the need for medication completely disappear. My spine straightened from repeated core whole body processes. So we just cleared the spine and allowed the fascia to manipulate the spine as we went, and that exercise helped it out. My overall mood improved. So I went from not really wanting to go outside and not exercising to being extremely social for that time period, and having a lot more energy to actually work and go out and talk to people. Um, my asthma attacks completely vanished within 2 months. I went from having an asthma attack every month, and without the singular every week, to not having a single asthma attack ever again. And some of it has to do with if you straighten your spine and scoliosis, you make some more room. Some of it has to do with some of the advanced protocols we did to readjust the pectoralis excavatum. And a lot of that is accredited to just good work done by both my mom and the technology, and it's really something I'm grateful for. The overall health of my experience greatly improved. So, this is just a night and day scenario of why I fundamentally believe in this technology. And it is what really changed is the introduction of this technology in my life, right? It was a pivotal uh, turning point in my life, experiencing and getting access to this tech. And I really feel grateful for the practitioners and the people who worked with my mom to find this technology. And then I'm really proud of my mom, who's just the founder of First Alternatives, for really creating a fantastic and uh, you know large distribution network of practitioners who are introducing this technology to people every day. And it's just an amazing experience to be along for the ride for. Um, and now I'm a true believer. I go to trade shows and conferences. Probably once a month, I go to a conference and I speak at, and I'm using it all the time. Just it is as fantastic as it sounds. In many cases, even more fantastic. And so, like, what is this technology that I keep advocating for, and why does it really work? And so, what it is it's a lot less like voodoo, high science, technical jargon, and more just simple functional principles in electrical engineering that are applied in physics-based medicine, right? We stay in physics, we stay less in this inductive theory and estimation and guesswork, and more on a functional, does it do X, right? Or does it do Y? And how much of that X is a change? How can we test it? How can we get that nerve to interact with the body? And how can we get the body to do a healthier thing or healthier path across the board? So as you can see, the first picture is kind of this, what is the most advanced picture you can imagine? The second picture is like, actually, what's the initial phase of what's going on? Well, it's as you'd say, it's a microcurrent device, which means that it is sending a very tiny amount of electricity, a really tiny amount of amperature down a circuit, and that circuit has you as the medium. So when you put the device on the body, that circuit is going to traverse through your body, and that low level of current is going to interact with your nervous system and your nerves and your capillaries and all types of different substructures in your body. And while it's interacting, depending on how that waveform goes into the body and is generated, your body does different things. So suffice to say, each of these words matters on a PhD level, for example. So when I say that the Avasia Pro Sport is a microcurrent device, cleared as a 10, so a transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulator, that uses damped biphasic sinusoidal pulsed current optimized for your body's nervous system. So damped means that it lowers or it controls for damaging your body. Biphasic means it goes in the positive and the negative direction so that it takes and gives energy as it needs across the circuit. Sinusoidal means that it is not jerking or it's not cliffed, so it's not too the body needs a lot of energy to get things done. It can take the work being done, but it's not delivered in too high of a dosage to where it can harm the body. So each of those matter, right? And if I was going to say a simple conversational term, what it is, it's an electrical device that puts a small amount of current into the body and achieves a whole lot of different effects from pain alleviation to circulatory perfusion to capillary expansion capacity increasing. These general effects on the body are fantastic, right? And what it's not just direct current in the body. It's not a square wave. It is alternating current, but it is, like I said, a biphasic sinusoidal wave. So it adjusts for the given peaks and troughs of the body and the limitations of the body. And it's not just random static to burn. And so you can see, from one graph to the other, what that translates to if you're not controlling for the intensity, if you're not controlling for an actual medical device that mitigates and helps the body, right? And even if you are a medical device and you're controlling for the voltage and it's on a low scale, this is what you're doing on the micro side, right? So this is what you end up damaging people with if you are uncontrolled or if you just have it on high volumes or on a local microscopic level where the nerves are being cauterized or then the nervous system, the pain gates are being blocked or impeded. So there's reasons why you don't want to use square waves. There's reasons why you don't want to just use blank alternating current or just static discharge or direct current, because it leads to injuries. And that's where I'd like to say that, some technologies are safe and others are not. And you should be aware of the contraindications and conditions for what these are doing. It's one of the reasons why I think Avazi is one of the best technologies on the market, if not the best, because it is so safe to use and so consistent across the board with having literally, I think, like zero reported adverse reactions to the FDA. I think there's, and I don't want to misspeak on that. Out of the more than hundreds of thousands of clients and patients who have been worked on, I would be surprised if there was more than 10 complaints ever made to the FDA or any governing body. And I know that because we've distributed out of First Alternatives more than, I think, something like 10,000 devices ourselves. And from that distribution pipeline, we've had 3 complaints, and all of them were extreme user error, right? And in conjunction with other subcomplementary devices, which compounded into a different error. So we know that this technology is incredibly safe and is non-invasive, leads to no side effects, is technically usable by anyone, and is very effective. And we know that because of the science, right? We know that because of the physics of how it actually uses. So when it first starts off, it sends this initial signal, right? So literally, the speed of light, we're sending a signal into the body. And based on how the body mitigates and directs that current, we are adapting and dampening the signal to work within the bounds of the nervous system. We're not overdoing it. We're not overwhelming the nerve. We are working within the bounds of every individual's human body. And it's customized to every individual. Every person has a different systematic manipulation that the body reacts to in a way because the body is always trying to counteract outside forces, right? So if you think that you're putting in, like right frequencies, if you think you're putting in an exact frequency and you're resonating that tissue, you're not. It's being manipulated by the internal medium of the body. And so what you can do is you can work within the bounds of what the body does, right? And you can input a control signal for the initial state. And then based on that control signal and based on resistance and impedance testing with the device, you can see, and this happens within a millisecond, you can see how the body manipulates that current. So we can change that current to work within the bounds of that tissue, of the properties of that tissue. And then we can modulate that signal. And this happens so quickly, it's almost subconscious, right? It is subconscious to us. It's within the device. It's controlled within the electrical circuitry of the device. Um, we can essentially edit that signal to work within the body, which is why the Avasia does so much work on the tissue. Your entire arm will be tingling, right? And we're only using a AA battery, right? We're only using maybe less than a millionth of an amp, right? So we're working within the bounds of the body. The body's doing most of the work. We're only given a small amount of electricity in comparison to what the body's actual upload and usage could do. And what that triggers while it's on the body is it triggers kind of what we call, the biofeedback electrostimulation technology. This has been changed to reaction technology, but it triggers this reaction in the neurological systems that adds both a therapeutic and a neurophysiological effect. And it also, dumps some energy into the nervous system. So that increased energy allows the body to do more work in various areas of signaling and communication, which then can lead to a whole lot of tertiary side effects, which are not positive effects, essentially. So effectively, we're triggering stimulation in the non-myelinated C fibers and the myelinated nerve fibers, which then triggers both an acute and a chronic, essentially, pain signal diminishing effect, where you're getting these neuropeptides and neuroactive substances released into the body. And those substances then lead to what we call is a chain of cascading mechanisms that triggers a longer term neuromediating and hormonal release or neurohormonal release that really uh, helps anyone achieve pain relief. I mean, there's no functional way in which you can have these neurohormonal chemicals released into the body that are not achieving the pain relief, because it is the literal receptors that we're trying to mimic with opioids. We're mimicking those receptors or those essentially those neurohormonal agents in the body. But the nicest thing about this is when you release these natural neurotransmitters and other agents and other hormones, the body already has a control mechanism to clean it up. So you're not overdoing it in an unnatural way that can harm your kidneys or harm your liver or harm any types of organs in your body. We're doing it in a way that's natural, the body can control for, right? We're just ramping up the effects of the body's natural communication and networking systems to actually trigger these responses, right? And so what eventually functionally happens is that, we achieve a short, within 30 seconds to a minute of having the technology on the spot, we achieve a short peptide release experience, which is essentially to say 5 minutes of pain relief, which is why, and most units, TENS units, can achieve this experience. Which is to say you release a little bit of the peptides. This triggers a pain relief and opioidic effect. And for 5 to 10 minutes, the person gets out of pain, right? Now, what makes us significantly different is because we're modulating that signal and work with the nervous system, we don't just achieve the short neuropeptide release in the 5 to 10 minutes period. We achieve a longer neurohormonal release, right, that works farther down the line, that afferent pathway line, and that achieves an opioidic effect for at least 18 hours, right? So anywhere from 14 to 18 hours, we're getting these neurohormonal agents released into the body. And not only that, but we also help regulate for gene expression. We're helping reprogram tissues. We're helping restructure the body in certain ways so that, we're shaking things up, but in a positive way that the body can work with and not feel like it's interrupted. For example, in cases of neuropathy, we're stimulating down certain channels and we're readapting those channels to both find better neurological connective channels so that signals can be going through routes a lot faster. So you're not playing this traveling salesman problem of trying to deliver resources to multiple different agents. You're improving the primary route of delivery and communication. And then, not only that, but you're reinforcing that subroute. So that way you're strengthening the neurological ability for actually going through the axiomatic nerve endings. which is very important, right? So if your body's better at communicating, different functions actually occur and help out. So, um, this is what I talk about afferent and efferent pathways. So, like for example, like your point from point to brain and from brain to point, there are different neural pathways that your body is using and inducing different chemical responses to actually achieve it, right? And so a lot of times people who have various diseases that inhibit both their upper and lower motor neurons or inhibit both the ability to sense and activate different muscle tissues, each of those we wouldn't be able to interact with unless we're really intrinsically changing the underlying nature of that neural pathway. And that's why we get like crazy results with frozen shoulders, with trigger fingers, with phantom limb syndromes, with pain responses that are abnormal or referred, and we can actually diminish the referred pain signals and the sciatic pain signals in those neuropathies and actually transfer them to actually direct point of pain or smart pain areas where the pain is actually in the area where the problem is, right? Where we get away from that referred and we get to the actual problem. And then after we get to the actual problem, we can actually work on that actual problem. So we're not just a band-aid. We're aiming for we're restoring the nerve tissue in a way that functionally targets and allows us to target the primary issue within the body. And with more technical work, you can go for even on a physical therapy level, you can identify certain muscles or regions or targets that are inhibiting or causing problems within your tissue. So, there's definitely an argument to be said that we're doing a lot more work than we need to for an acute local pain challenge, but for a chronic disease or a extreme mediated struggle, we're doing a perfect amount of work. We're getting everything done. We need to target the source of the problem, right? Because if you don't mitigate for the source, if you don't mitigate for the underlying issues, then the surface level issues are going to continuously trigger. Just like I was talking about, it allowed me to discover that, you know, um, it certainly allowed me to discover that the medication that I was taking was triggering the side effects that were effectively hampering my existence, right? And without the technology, without the microcurrent technology, I would not be able to identify that that was the source cause because I would just think it's any root cause. But because I was out of pain and I'd be out of pain until I take that drug, I was able to recognize that was the problem, right? And there's many different things that you could be considerate of that, right? If you're exercising, if you're doing certain things, maybe you're exercising wrong and you don't realize that you're exercising in a way that's hurting you, right? And you only ever feel pain after you do that exercise. It allows you to actually take a valid pain journal, right? A pain analysis of yourself or a wellness analysis because you actually are disassociated from all the menial non-valuable data, right? You can actually take targeted data and say, hey, this tissue doesn't hurt right now. That's fantastic. And then all of a sudden it does hurt. Well, now you have the data necessary to actually change and make informed decisions on your life. So I think it's very important. Now, besides just the neurological communication aspect of this, when your body communicates better, there is an increase in the ability for your uh, circulation and blood perfusion, which is ability to essentially resources to get to a area, right? And when you shake things up in the body and resources can be delivered to an area, you get an effect that increases the healing capacity of that local region, right? And why does that make sense? Well, if your cells express better, which means that they can ask for things and handle things better, right? And your circulation is improved so that more resources can be delivered to the local area and taken away from the local area. So that's inflammation, which is cellular debris, can be taken away or redirected to a new region of the body, right? Um, and you're getting better interaction with the neurohormonal agents in the body. So your body is just working at a higher level of efficiency for healing, right? We're getting acute healing. And whether or not that's an efficiency to the degree that it's more than 10 to 20% or 5%, what I can say is we're getting 200 to 300% increase in blood perfusion, right? Vasodilation expansion at 200%. They're doubling or tripling the amount of blood that can get into the local region and get drained out, right? So for different areas that have inflammation and bruises that just have no circulation in different areas, or scar tissue, especially keloids that have minimal access to the actual body's capillary response systems and have been essentially isolated and been drained the local necessary resources except for that which can maintain the living tissue. you're actually getting access to these things that can actually come and clean it up, which is why we're getting scar tissue mitigation therapy, right? We're getting these immense, huge value out of just like a tiny device that you just put on your body. It's like it makes no sense. This is not the mainstream medical doctrine when facing inflammatory response syndromes or when you're facing pain. This should be the easiest prescription that people can make. And so what ends up happening with inflammation is that these neuropeptides, these endocrine secretions, and different cortisol secretions mediate the inflammation in the local area. And literally, like the ability for it to drain out and for it to be carried away increases rapidly. So swelling decreases after usage of the device. The overall inability and heaviness of the local tissue decreases. So the body feels lighter in the local region because there's less weight, because there's less shit in the area. Sorry for the non-medical term, but suffice to say. And the immune system that might be suppressed because of the inability for the autoimmune or immune area to actually get delivered resources to local region becomes mediated from. So your immune system actually improves, right, in the local complement, right? And so we also see, macrophages, which is, a part of the immune system, essentially, have an access because of the increased capillary response, have more access to the local region. So proliferation and activation of the macrophages increases, which is another reason why macrophages eat fibroblastic tissue, and scars are fibroblastic tissue. So we can actually get, the mediation and absorption and reabsorption of scar tissue from the body into not only the subdermal and dermal layers, but all the way into the internal organ layers, right? So, we're getting this valuable benefit from all this technology of just, hey, we're just sitting in, we're improving a little bit of the communication on I would say, an almost impossible to think about way 50 years ago, because we were using advanced circuitry and, technology to actually achieve this, but we're getting this in a quite extreme valuable way. And so, what does the Vazia really do in the clear distinction from 50 years or 20 years ago is like, look, we're using advanced waveforms that are extremely reactive to the normalized tissue, to any tissue, really. It works on anyone. And we have an advanced set of circuitry that was designed, analog circuitry that was really tailor-made design for this exact use case. I mean, the inventor of it was the VP for Texas Instruments. He, was one of the main background engineers for the circuitry behind, all the Texas Instruments calculators, right? And all the design characteristics for those chipsets, right? And so, he designed this technology because his buddy was going to lose his legs, and he helped him with his neuropathy and helped maintain and save his legs. And as well as himself, he used it for his diabetic neuropathy, right? So, there's use cases for why this works, and there's clear cases for that it does work, right? Additionally, there's a safety aspect with the signaling mechanism, right? Which is why I don't recommend TENS blanketly. I don't think TENS units are functionally effective for long-term mediated chronic use. I think, in fact, they're harmful in many cases. And the reason being is that how do you fundamentally stay in millicurrent? How do you stay in microcurrent, right? Are you establishing a circuit in millicurrent and then sending packets in microcurrent? And if you're not an engineer, that makes no sense for what I'm saying. But on a technical level, right? If you're sending a millicurrent, which is cauterizing or inhibiting the neural activative gates that are sending channels, so it's too much stimuli, right? And then all of a sudden you're sending a little bit of microcurrent, right? You're sending a little bit of the communicative value that the nerves can actually understand, but then you're sending a packet and then maybe 2 or 3 milliseconds, you're sending a millicurrent back, right? So that mediated circuit is valueless, right? Because the communicative signal is already blocked by the millicurrent, right? So the Vazia only sends microcurrent, right? Well, within the channels that it wants to use. And that's the important feature in the cleaner signaling. It's a very acute problem that can diminish the efficacy of any medical technology that's using it. So it's focus and intensified signaling. So based on how the body wants to, how we want to react within different algorithms and substructures for the device, which is in different modes, there are different specified reasons to intensify the signal. So if you want a muscle to actually react and twitch and you want to retrain it using physical therapy to access the parasympathetic interaction, you can do that, right? And it's, one of the first generations of reaction-based systems. So it's cleaner, more precise, more reactive to the body, with expanded clinical versatility. It's very easy to use. You don't need to have a huge system. In fact, one of the jokes we had was, the inventor said, Tim Smith was saying that, he'd see competitors on the market that are charging $40,000 for a box that effectively contained a 2-inch circuit chip, right, with downloaded digital data and they're putting in these microcurrents and they're not even understanding the underlying engineering, but they sell it as this big box. So doctors are confused and think, oh, bigger is better. But in fact, it's just suboptimal and it's just a marketing ploy, right? And it can be quite frustrating when you look at it. Now, here are some case studies that are worth sharing. Like, when we say that we're getting some amazing results, I mean, this is diabetic neuropathy. This is something that does not heal naturally. This is a problem that is going downhill. And the doctor is, for this case, is I think has some sick humor, but he put the pliers through to show that this is a full hole straight through. And when you look at it in distinction, the hole literally closes after therapy, after using this technology. So you're getting not only perfusion, you're getting healing, you're getting restoration of the nervous system, you're getting restoration of the underlying communicative features that will signal and heal these wounds, right? You're taking situations like this, where this is, this is a 66-year-old man, and he has an open wound, right? And while we're not cleared for open wounds, we're definitely cleared for the pain for it in the FDA. And you're seeing that, you're seeing not only the return of tissue functionality because the fascia is restored in the local region, but the closure of the wound itself and the tissue's recovery, which this should not be recovering. If you don't have an intervention with the technology, that wound will literally create a cavity and it will divot and it will continue to divot until you lose the limb, right? Until you have to amputate or you die from infection. So these are life interventions that are just life-saving, right? This is on a less life-saving note. This is a gentleman who we met at a conference, and he, after a 25-minute therapy session, he had multiple different surgeries for carpal tunnel and multiple different regions why he had to have that area cut open. And he had lost sensation and feeling in his fingers. Could not feel, could not have any sensation. He could use it, so his brain to point, right, was working, right, but his point to brain wasn't working, the afferent pathway. And after 20 minutes of working, just painting the area with the device and allowing it to react to the local area, the nervous tissue came back. His sensation and feeling in his hand returned. So the ability of that neural pathway to reconnect from his hand to his brain restored. We found the route to actually do it. The body incorporated it and reincorporated it into the neural homunculi and worked, right? And then not only that, the scar tissue actually started to decrease right away. You can look at it. You can look at how the fascia started to reabsorb, and the scar actually flushed red as if to be absorbed back into the body, right? And I'd be curious to see a picture of it today because I'm almost certain it's partially disappeared now, right? And this is within 30, 40 minutes. So it's like, okay, well, we're causing acute tissue change for sure. This is exactly what I said would happen with a cavity. This is a wound taken to the furthest extent, the diabetic ulcer, right? This is an amputated limb that continued to trigger worse and worse states. You cut off one part of it and then it kept on going. You can see a cavity. Well, guess what? With repeated therapy sessions with the Evasio over 2 months, we go from a complete whole cavity to complete closure restoration of the tissue, right? Even on what you'd say is purely compromised tissue, right? This is absolutely compromised tissue. So on a less compromised note, this is a fusion. This is a spinal fusion surgery where they had to cut open the upper cervical region, and you can see that the region from one picture to the next, the fascia is disrupted, the area wasn't sealed properly, and after one therapy session, it's smoother, the scar started to disappear, and the body is working on a higher efficacy level. So, it just takes a couple therapy sessions to really get a huge benefit of this technology. This is another instance of scar tissue. This is a spinal realignment surgery that, caused this girl to have almost a permanent indent in her back and these different nodules, and she was very self-conscious about it. After one session, both the scapula there that actually decreased intensity, she was able to lower her shoulders down, which then took off a lot of pressure, and then each of the nodule holes in her spine actually came off the spine. The fascia de-isolated those subregions and actually restored the functionality of the tissue. So these are amazing case studies and case points, but it's not just case studies. We have actual studies showing statistical evidence for why this technology works so well, right? This is the a wound care study that we did. We did a clone of that study in Baylor that supported the same results as we did in one in Malaysia, where we showed that of the patients who had wounds, not a single one of them had no yield. Not a single one had a essentially a negative outcome. Every single one had a positive outcome. The worst positive outcome that would be a 20% wound closure, right? So out of I think this was I'd like to say this is a 100-person study, but I believe that something like 75 or 80 actually replied to the end results of the information. Of the 70 or 80 that are here, you see that at least 70% of them achieved results that are better than 50% wound closure, right? Um, and the other thing to note is that we had complication of the study because there is insurance claims that if you do have complete wound closure, you would lose some benefits. And so we had to have a complementary complementary conclusion analysis of this. But there are many people who didn't respond that had perfect results, right? But this is what we could get out of the data, which is showing that look, most of the people who use this technology got amazing wound closure and wound area reduction, right? As far as pain relief goes, not a single person reported not having better pain relief, right? 11 didn't have pain to begin with, but there is no pain to start. They didn't have increase in pain. They didn't have no side effects that triggered negative outcomes. Almost everyone had a positive experience. I mean, 11 of them had no pain at the end of essentially going from a hole in their body to having no pain at all. Some more than probably the most expected 40% pain reduction, which is kind of a crazy thing. And here's, when you actually go through the tertiary outcomes of this as well, that's when it's absolutely crazy. It's like not a single one reported that that reported. So this is kind of the inverse. Every single person on that study had decrease in swelling in their legs, a decrease in foot stiffness, and improvement in their sleep quality. So 94%, 94.7% reported an improvement in their sleep quality, right? 93% reported skin discoloration improvements. 99% reported that their leg was less heavy, right? Sensation returned in 98% of them. This is just absolutely insane outcomes for a study with an above a 99.99% certainty of outcome that this was improved by the Avasia and outcome and analysis. So, and how do we do that? Well, in this, we use various different modalities attached to the Avasia to achieve different perfusions in the local region, which then led to benefits, right? We can use a PMF attachment that got around 11 to 30% improvement in perfusion. We could use a directed scalar device that directed cancellation PMF directly into it for around 30%. The Y electrode, which is what comes in most of the kits, it can get anywhere from 100 to 400% perfusion in a region, right? And you can see just how quickly we can take just necrotic and dying tissue and increase the temperature and the circulation in that region and greatly improve the overall essentially circulatory aspect of resource delivery to a region. I mean, this is night and day. You're looking at there's 30% increase in temperature, right, for circulation, right? This is 150%, 190% increase in circulation to the local acute region, right? And so you're seeing these results. This is, you look at the white picture here, I mean, that's a hole in someone's foot. And we're getting that result, right? That is not someone who has a successful. So these are the worst case scenarios on a healthy individual. The effect is tenfold. On a healthy individual, it's even greater the effect of healing because your body's working properly. You have no complications. So it's like one of those things that we talk about. It's like, yeah, if you're healthy, it's easier to heal. If you're going downhill, it's very hard to stop the car from going downhill once it's already picked up momentum, right? But if you're just at the start of your journey, yeah, there's a lot of things you can be proactive with that you can help with your healing. So this is another aspect, another study which shows that, of the people who use the technology per pain reduction, 93% reported pain reduction, right? And this is the funny thing about this study is that this is a 41 patient study. Of the 41 patients, 6 people didn't reply. So that, I think it's 3 people didn't reply, which created the artificial idea that not 100% had pain relief, which actually, would be the physics-based case. Is it should be 100% have pain relief. In this case, 93% reported and 93% had pain reduction, right? Ease of movement improved in 80%. Return to daily activities improved 80%. Improved sleep 80%. Decrease in medication use. This is a crazy one. This is what I can personally attest for. More than 40% of patients in the study, within a month of using the technology, stopped their medication. Right? That's a crazy statistic for substitution and complementary service, right? You take a device that has a one-time purchase price, and you can mitigate a medication that you have to be on forever. Like that's and within minds, this is something you can bring to your primary care physician and say, look, is this a reasonable technology for me to incorporate? Is this a reasonable risk profile? And the risk profile is 0, right? So you take a pharmaceutical drug that has a possible risk profile of 1 in 100 or 1 in 300, or even in some cases 1 in 30, so 3%, right? And you show them this where it's 1 in 100,000 risk profile, right? Or 1 in a million risk profile on the physics-based evidence of what's going on. It's a no-brainer for the outcome, right? And you can see this is a further expedition and exactly, what that report was, right? So it's like, 5% just didn't even respond, right? 0% said no effect. That's what I'd like to say is like, look, even the worst case, like a little effect, 2% said a little effect. That's the worst case scenario, is that it only affects a little bit. It's like the average is very effective in pain relief, in this case, it's sleep improvement. The 10% just didn't answer. Only 7% said no change. So that's 93% reported that there was a significant change in the sleep outcome, right? With 40% saying that their sleep was better, 30% saying it was a lot better, right? And now if you're out of pain, sleep is going to be significantly easier at night. This is reduction in medication. So 30% didn't even reply, but 40% said they were able to reduce the medication load. So only 24% said that they weren't able to reduce it. So, I'm more interested to see the long-term study of saying if they're still on it. Maybe there's a medication that they have to use with their primary physician as a recommendation. But, you see that there's a significant chance that you can get off your medications if you're using this technology within reason. Return to daily activity. This is such a crucial one. It's like, hey, you've been debilitated for so long, but have you had a chance to actually return a little functionality to your life? 0% said there was no effect. 0%, which means every single person who used this technology got a little bit of return to function. Now that is an amazing outcome, an amazing statistical discovery. That's 99.9% certainty that this technology helped a little bit, if not a lot. And only 5% said a little bit, right? You look at the numbers, 77% said it helped significantly. So, if by conclusion you think this technology is not worth looking at or renting for $50 to try it out or purchase a device, I think you're crazy. And I'll say that readily because the evidence that I presented here today and the personal story is showing, I've had a personal experience saying that this is absolutely effective. You should check it out. You should absolutely check out the Vazia technology. I believe that it can help mitigate your pain. It can help improve your overall pain relief ability. It can assist with the recovery of multiple different issues across the board in terms of pain related or traumas related to pain, and as well as just traumas in general. It can help with some scar tissue, right? With the pain related to that scar tissue and improve your overall health. And it is a viable substitute for many medications, especially opioids within the market, right? To help reduce the swelling, pain, and without any side effects, right? And I think that the risk of the $50 or $100 to rent a device or purchase a device to see if it'll change your life is more than worth it to get the value that it'll bring to your life. And I thank you for listening in on this topic and presentation. If you're interested in learning more about the technology, you can check out firstalternativetherapies.com. On that site, we have information on how you can acquire the technology. And as far as the studies I went over, the actual white papers, the in-depth papers, and the literature on the efficacy of the technology that I was talking about today. If you're interested in possibly coming into our wellness center located out of Fort Lauderdale, you can go to fabetterbody.com and possibly book an appointment there. And or if you're just interested in learning more about the technology and want to email me regarding information or my support team, you can email B as in Bravo at fareps.com for more information from me, or if you have any questions, or you can email my team at support@fareps.com. I really appreciate you logging on for the presentation, and for any of those who didn't get the chance to listen to it at the conference, I think that this is a full and complete version, and I'm happy to share it with you. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that if you get a chance to share this with anyone, that they get the most out of the presentation as they can. If you're interested in following, liking, or sharing this technology through social media, my handle is Brendan Legal on Twitter or X, and First Alternatives on multiple different sites, from Facebook to X to LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to talk about this more. All right. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day, and this is me signing off.